Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. You're looking at Honest E Conversations with Melanie and Kimberly. This is our second episode. So, welcome. We have another question. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Melanie. And the question this time is a tough one, I think you said, Kimberly. My question is Black or African American? Which do you prefer to be called?
Now, let's go with you first on this one.
Oh, me first? Okay.
Yeah, you first this time. I went first last time.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like with everything that's happening lately, I feel like all of a sudden people are being called Black again instead of African American, which makes more sense to me because my understanding of, people and geography and where people are from, I know people who are from Africa who are white because they're from South Africa. I also know people who are Black who are not from Africa. And so I just feel like to say African American is just it's mislabeling people because everybody who's Black is not necessarily from Africa, and they're also not necessarily American, and they're also not necessarily Black. So and I feel like if we're going to say that you are African American, then we have to say that I'm Lithuanian, English, French American, because
Good point.
And what if you live in England? Then you're not African American, then you're African English. And do they call Black people in England African English or African French if you live in France? Or, I mean, obviously you're not still African American if you live in another country other than America.
Well, and if you were from that country, do you become an African English American once you become an American citizen?
Right. So I've always disagreed with the term African American. When I was in college, we had once a year, I was in the theater department, and once a year we had a Black show, which made no sense specifically to me because most of the theater department was white. So there were Black people in the theater department, but basically by doing a Black show, it meant we had to just bring in people into the theater department who were not theater majors. That's a whole different issue, but it was just bringing people into the department who weren't paying to be theater majors to be in a show. It did open up, opportunities for other people, which was cool. But there was one guy in our theater department who's like, well, I'm trying out. And we're like, well, you're not Black. And he's like, no, but they had changed the label to one African American show. He goes, I'm from Egypt. I'm African. I'm going to go try out for the show. And there was nothing they could do to tell him he couldn't be in the show because he's like, I'm African, I'm American. So therefore, it just never worked for me.
Well said. Well said. I am going to be one of the people who agree with you on that one. I understand where the African American term came from. I get it. I choose not to be called that. And for the people who choose to be called that, good. Be called that. My experience is slightly different though, because when I was 9, my father remarried, and my stepmother's from Ethiopia. She was born in Ethiopia. She grew up in Ethiopia. She moved to America from Ethiopia. She became a naturalized citizen in America. My interpretation of African American, and that's why I wear this cross. This is her cross. So my interpretation is, yes, she's an African American because she's from Africa, from Ethiopia, and became an American. If you're an Irish American, you moved from Ireland, you came from Ireland and you're an Irish American. I know that the reason why, I guess, behind, I'm guessing, I'm assuming the reason why African American as a term came up was so that people had a point of reference to be proud to be from. And I'm with that. That's great. I don't think I'm an African American because I've been, and my family's been in America too long.
Right.
And if that's the, and also if that's the case, everybody's an African American because all of the world began in Africa. So we're all African Americans as far as I'm concerned. I
Are we all
will
Jewish then too?
Huh? Say that again?
I said, are we all Jewish then too? Because weren't they all Jewish in the beginning?
Well, right. So the beginning of time was, was in Africa. So the Garden of Eden showed up in Africa. So whatever it is that your beliefs are, everybody is can be traced back to Africa. I just personally don't choose that because my stepmother is actually, or I should say my bonus mother. My bonus mother is actually from Africa.
And that makes sense. That makes sense because I wouldn't sit there and say, well, I'm a Lithuanian American. I'm like, I'm not Lithuanian. I mean, my father's family was born in Lithuania, but my parents were born here. I'm American. And like my background, my heritage, what countries my families came from, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm English, I'm French, but I'm not, but I would be far reaching if I said, oh, I'm French. I'm like, I'm not French. I'm American.
Well, and see, and that's the other thing. Like, I shouldn't have to label myself black either. I'm American. The end. Any country I go to around the world wants to know not what color I am. They want to know where I'm from. Oh. So I'm American. So I had a little girl in my class too. This was really funny. She was, I want to say a 7th grader, and she was from Poland, and she just arrived from Poland. And, you know, we had to fill out the little, whatever it was for tests that we had to take. And it was asking, you know, she's like, well, you know, help me with these. I don't understand these questions. It was like, are you black? Are you non-Hispanic? Are you non-Pacific Islander? And she's like, well, what do I put? And I'm like, put Caucasian. And she's like, no, I'm not Caucasian. I'm Polish. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But for this thing, they're making you have to be Caucasian. She's like, but I don't know what Caucasian is. She's like, I'm Polish. And I'm like, I know, but there's no box to check for Polish, sweeties. Just put what I'm telling you to put, because that's where we are, and that's what we're doing. But she was so confused, and then she was angry because she is Polish, and she wanted to be Polish on this, that they were asking her, what are you? She's like, I am Polish. And it's like, yeah, so only in America do you have to classify yourself as a color or a race or anything else, because nowhere else in the world is bothered by that. It's only here. And maybe in places like South Africa where the colonization was so heavy, but here it's a big deal, and it shouldn't be a big deal. We're American. The end. The fact that they even ask those questions is ridiculous in and of itself, but they do. So if you have to pick.
And the term Caucasian, I was hearing the other day, has something to do with the Caucasus Mountains,
the Caucasoid,
Europe, Russia, and somebody wanting to and colonizing and trying to make sure that everybody fit into this thing, and then they had to make the German person, or I think, or the English person who created this was white and had to make himself fit in with it, and that's why we're called Caucasian. I mean, so that's from a part of the country that I am definitely not from, or part of the world, I'm sorry, that I'm definitely not from. So. And
it's not on the map really, like, so easily. No,
not really.
Like, you look on the map, you're like, where's Caucasoid? I'm not sure. You know, you can't even really find it. Yeah, and another problem that comes.
Oops, we lost your audio there.
There were times before when people like Tiger Woods came out and was like, I'm Malaysian. And it's like, well, yeah, you are. You know, why does he have to break it down? Because now you can break it down. See, now that it's 2020, you can, or 2015 and up, you can break down the Malaysian, because your mom is Asian and your dad is black. But in slavery, most people were black and Caucasian.
Right. Oh, we lost your audio again. There you go.
You know.
Let me ask you then about President Barack Obama. And it was such a big deal that he was the first Black president, but he had a white mother. So while his features appear more that he might have had two Black parents, he was just as white as he is Black. Was he not?
I don't think we're ready for my views on that one today.
Okay. I mean,
but in our society, that's a Black man. Okay. And the way that our society, one drop of Black blood made you Black. And that's the way it's been in America since America began. So, yeah, first Black president.
He's seen as a Black man. So if he had married a white woman and had white kids, would he still be seen as would he have been seen as a Black man with a white wife and white kids?
Again, in America, that Black man would have been married to a white woman with Black children. Because his kids still, I don't care what they look like, they'll still be Black children.
Okay. So even if they looked white.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow. That's a whole nother conversation. Hey,
I
topic
guess
3.
Things to think about. Well, well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. This is really fun. If you want to ask us a question, our email address is honestediscussions@gmail.com. You can ask your question directly to Kimberly or directly to me or to both of us, and we will get back to you either via email or we'll bring your question on to one of our next discussions. We good?
Thanks for tuning in. Love you. Have a great one.